Welcome back, ladies. I'm your host, Molly Trotter Gomez, and I am so excited for our guest today. And we usually introduce each other as sister from another mister. So I'm in California and she's in Wisconsin. I am so excited to be introducing Mandy. Mandy is a dear friend of mine. Every time I jump online and I see her bright, shining face, she is just constantly serving others. And she has a very relatable and just a really good story for you today, talking about identity. And so, Mandy, I'm not going to give them any more of that. I would love for you to just kind of jump on, share a brief background of who you are, and then we'll jump into the story today, which is going to be so good for so many women.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me. Yes, it is true. You are my sister from another mister, and I just adore being around you and talking with you. I always leave our conversations feeling so much better and so uplifted and encouraged. So I'm just really, first of all, thankful for you for this opportunity to speak to your audience. Yeah, like Molly said, my name is Mandy Emerson. I'm actually originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I now live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Why I'm in the Midwest from such a drastic change is I met my husband on cruise ships where I used to be a singer in the production cast. I did that after I had graduated college with a performing arts degree. So the majority of my life, I've been a singer performer in musical theater, and took to the open sea for 4.5 years. And that's where I met my husband. He was a passenger, and we just really hit it off, and we had a long distance thing going on for a while. So after I was kind of burnt out from cruise ship life, it's a tough life, I will say. I very much a blessing that I got to see and travel and do the thing that I love for so long. I've probably been to more places before I hit 30 before I probably would otherwise in my life. So very thankful for that opportunity, but it was definitely time for a change. And I wanted to see where this relationship was going with this awesome guy that I had met. So I moved to Chicago. So I wasn't moving all the way to Milwaukee just for a man, and also knew nobody there. Chicago, I had some family, and it felt a little bit more of like a happy medium. And there was still a performing arts scene in Chicago. This is actually kind of where this story of identity starts to really set in. But just to kind of round it out before we dive deep into that, we got engaged. I moved to Milwaukee. We got married in October 2019. Pandemic happened. I lost my job. I created a new job for myself. So that's kind of where we are at today. I'm an Instagram coach and strategist, and I help female entrepreneurs grow their business using Instagram. So that's kind of a really short little summary of my history and who I am, where I come from, and what I'm doing now.
I love it. And if you're watching the YouTube version of this, or at least go to the YouTube version, you could just see like her personality just like bubble over. And I love it. And you actually, go to her Instagram, Mandy, what is it? The Mandy Emerson. Yes. Cause she
Mandy
just
Emerson,
has she'll make you laugh. She'll make you think, she'll make you be like, ooh, that's good. Like all those things. And so I always just like to get little plugs. Cause honestly, like we're on Instagram anyway, so you might as well go be entertained and then obviously learn something, right? But I want to talk
totally.
about the identity piece because this is so good. I mean, first of all, before we even jump into that, what was it like working on a cruise ship, and how many years were you doing that? I mean, gosh, people are probably like, what? Like, obviously, the theater piece and the performing piece brought you into that, but you were doing it for so long. So, talk about just what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's not something you hear every day, and that's what I was sharing with you before we hit record on this. Is it's not a profession you hear very often from people. So, like I said, I've been performing since I was really young in high school choir, and I did musical theater, and I went to school for a performing arts degree. And then after I graduated, I went out to California to audition. Royal Caribbean was one of those auditions. I was called 2 weeks later if I could be in Miami for rehearsals in 2 weeks. So I packed up my life, and I did that for 4.5 years, 5 contracts of 6.5 months total. And it was it was a shock in a couple different ways, because ship life is very different than land life. And I know my cruise ship people are totally going to understand what I'm talking about. But for my land life people that have no idea, if you've ever been on a cruise, I mean, you're around the same people all the time. You're going to the same places to eat. You are going to the same, well, if you're going on multiple cruises, you're going to the same places over and over again. And again, there's a lot of things that I'm thankful for in that experience, because I got to do what I love. I got paid for it. I didn't have any bills because my living was taken care of. My food was taken care of. I didn't have any electric bills. I had to pay my cell phone bill, and that was it. And I was going to places like Europe and the Caribbean and Iceland. I mean, I don't know how many people can say that they've gone to Reykjavik, Iceland. I've gone to Asia, gone to Australia. I mean, I've gone to some amazing, amazing places. Um, the life on a cruise ship is definitely not for everyone. And that's kind of where I fell into it is you have to think about the people that you work with. If you work with other people, you might be a solopreneur and you only work with yourself, but think about, a group of people from all different walks of life get thrown together and you are breathing, eating, sleeping, working, living, playing with those groups of people for 6.5 months. There are bound to be people that get along really great. And I have some amazing friends to this day that I absolutely adore. And then there's going to be people that maybe you don't see eye to eye. And it can be hard because you can't get away. Like you can't go home and have your own sanctuary. You all walk down the same hallway to your, I say dorms, but like your staterooms. Like you go to your rooms, which by the way are tiny. And I do actually have YouTube videos. I have 2 YouTube videos of a room tour of when I lived with somebody, because most of us are bunked together, and when I lived by myself. It can get tough. And I had some really unfortunate experiences because I feel things really big. I'm very emotionally charged, very emotionally driven. I hate controversy. I hate upsetting anyone. I don't like to be in drama. At that point in my life, I didn't know how to recognize drama that did not include me. Therefore, I just needed to walk away. But I got sucked into it, as we do. Like you're with some of your good friends and they might be complaining about something and you can't help but be a little bit like drawn into that a little bit because a little part of you like wants to know what's going on, or and that was very much where I was at in that time of my life. Nowadays I'm like, I'm out. If something ever comes like across me, I'm like, I gotta go. Like this is none of my business. This doesn't concern me. And I also don't want to be held responsible for having information that I don't need to have. So I recognize that now, but those are really hard lessons to learn then, because then it became a lot of he said, she said, and you're on her side, but you're on his side type of stuff. And it's very toxic. I'm just going to call it out for what it is. So it can be hard because you can't necessarily get away. You don't have easy access to the internet or talking to people. You do have to pay to get on. So it's not like turn on my phone and I can talk to my people. It's no, I got to like log in and dial up and it costs money. So the way to get away wasn't as easy versus you're just never really alone. Like there's always going to be people around you, and that can take a toll. Some people are just meant for that life and they can tackle it and handle it with poise and grace and all of that. For someone who is younger like myself, who definitely needs some maturing, as we all do, we all need to grow. It was hard. So by the end of it, I was like, this is good. My last contract was the best. I had the best cast, literally no drama in sight, at least none that I was a part of. I think I learned my lesson by the end of that. Just like, don't get involved with anybody else's stuff. Just like stick to yourself. I had my own room. So I did have my own little sanctuary, and we were in Asia. I mean, it was a dream. So by the end, it did really end on a good note, but there was a lot of really tough times that I think sparked a little bit of now what I have anxiety driven and some insecurities that kind of followed me through. So in a grand scope, I'm glad that I did it. I would probably never go back unless Tim, my husband, went with me.
Yes,
my
of course.
person.
And Moses and your cute
And
dog.
Moses, of course. If I can't take my dog, I'm not going.
Gosh, if you do not take your dog, I'm coming over. I'm like, I love your dog. He's so cute.
He's the best.
He is. Oh my gosh, Mandy, there's so much in there where it's like I couldn't even imagine of, eat, sleep, breathe, all the things with people that, you like and you don't like. And there's people that I love, but I can't do that 24/7, And so I've been on one cruise and I was good. Maybe I'll go on another one like way later. I have sea legs. So I have sea legs for a long time after a cruise. So I get really nauseous on boats. But at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, more power to the people, right? To the people that want to do that. But to be in that environment constantly, and then you just kept re-signing contracts, and then you're just so embedded in that culture, and it's like your own little island for a long time, right? And you're like moving to different places, but still it gets really small. I mean, talk about that experience of like, what what did you do when you just kind of felt like the noise and you were just surrounded by so many people? Like, how did you find your own little sanctuary, even if you only had a few minutes for yourself? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, totally. I learned that on my very first contract that I needed to have something that was mine outside of what I did on the ship and who I was around. So I actually learned to spend time alone really well on cruise ships. Before, I really enjoyed being around, and I still do to this day, but this is something really important that I really enjoyed. First of all, spending time with myself, but it was also a chance for me to get to know myself on a deeper level as a woman in her 20s, her mid 20s. And that's actually when I discovered I was actually coming back from my second contract. It was from Australia. So my time zones were all wonky and I wasn't falling asleep till like 3 o'clock in the morning. That I discovered YouTube video content creation, and it was in the form of makeup. So two things really sparked from that is my love and passion for makeup, and then my love and passion for content creation in the form of video. So I jumped on that bandwagon so fast. And let me tell you, I was no makeup artist. I've since grown a lot since then. But I look back at some of my, those Facebook memory things that pop up from,
Yes.
high school and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I really think that that was cute?
Oh my gosh. It is like almost torture when those things come up. You're like, oh my gosh, that was what was it? What? Like, why would you remind me of that? I don't want that.
I know I don't need to see that, but also it's really cool to see, your journey from there to here. So that's also a cool part of it. But I did discover that passion, which has really played a part in where I'm at today with social media. So it's kind of cool to see that connection with something that was just a hobby. I was making beauty videos. I was doing vlogging. I was taking short clips around my travels, where I was going. So that was kind of like my getaway. And I would tell people like, I have a YouTube channel. I need to go record. Don't bother me. Don't come in, because it's hard to find a quiet place on the cruise ship, because
Mm.
either you hear people talking or people are walking in hallways. Waves are crashing against the sides of the ship. So it is actually hard to find a quiet place. But then people were just, most of the time the cast was really understandable, or understanding, I should say, and like, oh, Mandy's doing her thing. She has her, little YouTube thing. So that was kind of my escape. Like if I didn't want to go do something, or if I didn't necessarily want to be around a certain group of people, I'd be like, I have a deadline on my own YouTube channel, which is kind of
Yes, you
silly now,
should.
but it was like my escape. It really was. And it gave me something else to look forward to. And I just really enjoyed doing it. So it is true. There's not a lot of times where you're by yourself. Everybody knows each other's business. And if they don't know something about you, they're gonna make something up, because like, oh, Mandy's, this, that, and the third, she must be this. And it's like, no, I just keep it to myself.
Yes.
So
Well,
the YouTube stuff is really what came into play for me.
it's so good because it's like whether you're on a cruise ship or you're on land, no matter where you are, sometimes people can feel like bombarded by so many others, whether you have a lot of people in your home or just people that are needing you
Mhm.
and buying for your time. Here's the thing is that like find something that really is just yours and that's your gift
Yeah.
to the world. And when you do that and you focus on that, like there's a reason why God give you interests and he gives you,
Mhm.
these things that are just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why am I interested in this or why am I good at this? We should probably
Yeah.
press into that because there's a lot of things where people are like, I don't know what my gifting is or my purpose is, but have you even taken the time to really discover it? And so this is a perfect transition from where you were on a cruise ship, what you discovered, what you love to do, with makeup and vlogging and just doing like basically video entertainment to what you do today with helping people really be able to build their business on Instagram. And I love to refer to Mandy as the queen of reels. She does such a great job. She has an amazing membership for that. And we'll talk about that here in just a bit. But there is this identity piece in between. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people go from one thing to another. And some people will just stay in that beginning thing because the
Mhm.
transition is like, I don't even know what that's like. What do I do? And, they're scared of the what ifs. And so I'd love for
Right.
you to talk about that piece because that right there, I think is just going to set a lot of women free and just really give them a big picture as to like what's been happening.
Yeah. There's a couple different facets to that, and I'm already getting chills. So I feel like I'm this is like that's how I know I'm in the right place at the right time to be talking about something. I feel like that's the Holy Spirit talking to me, like you're in the
Yes.
right place, so keep doing it. So there's a couple different things in this period when I got off of cruise ships and I moved to Chicago, and I was still trying to pursue performing, and I was still doing the YouTube stuff. It it brought me so much pride and joy to be able to say, I'm a cruise ship singer, or I'm a professional singer, because I've been paid for it. I've been traveling around the world doing it. So to not be able to say that anymore was tough. And when I moved to Chicago, I needed to get a job. And all of a sudden, I felt so unqualified to do anything. And I either thought I needed to book a whole bunch of shows, or I needed to go into corporate America. I did not see entrepreneurship as an option. I don't think I even realized that it was a possibility at the time. So I thought my options were, performing as much as I can, which, by the way, anybody that's in the performing arts industry or in entertainment, that it is one, super unstable, and two, inconsistent, and three, does not pay worth a lick. So there's that. But then going into corporate America, that just never sat well with me. So the next option was really to go get a part-time job in retail. I had done that in high school and college. I think everybody does. But and this doesn't reflect on anyone that does work in retail or part-time. I almost felt ashamed to say that I was 27, 28 years old and I was working part-time at a beauty store. And there's no reason I should have been ashamed, because I truly was in a season of transition, and God was working in me in a way that I did not see. I didn't see it at all. And it was really frustrating and really heavy for me. And I was just going through a period of like, what am I good for? What do I offer the world? It was really heavy. And it played a lot of insecurity tricks on my mind. I mean, the enemy was telling me lie after lie after lie. And I believed him. I believed them for a long time, for a couple years, actually. It wasn't until, 6 months, about 8 months into working into retail, I was introduced to bigger cosmetic brands like Estee Lauder and Tarte Cosmetics, that they had independent contractor positions that definitely paid a little bit more. Their hours were higher. So that took me to a next level. And again, within Estee Lauder, I was helping with the social media side for these independent contractors. So again, there was things happening. I just didn't see how they were going to be of use right now. But in that season of transition and waiting, it was heavy and I was struggling, and I thought I was going crazy. I thought, like, what's wrong with me? I'm unqualified. I even thought at some point that this man that's now my boyfriend at the time, was going to break up with me because I wasn't showing the potential that women my age were doing. I was very much comparing myself to other women around me that were my age, what they were doing. They were established in their corporate 9 to 5. They either had a business or whatever it was. They were established and I was not. And I hated that feeling so much. So it really was a couple years of that waiting, and it was a lot of prayer. It was a lot of going to church and a lot of crying. There was a lot of crying in those years. And it was just a lot of surrendering. I would probably surrender multiple times a day, like, God, help me, make this clear to me. And we've heard this before. Sometimes God does not have, I mean, he has the answer, but he's not necessarily making it as clear, because you are meant to be in this season of waiting. Sometimes your season of waiting is what God has intended for you. So now I can look back on that time and I can now see what he was doing in me, but I did not see it then. And I if I could tell my younger self, because it wasn't that long ago, but if I could tell my past self to, I mean, obviously to hold on, but just have faith that God is doing things. He is working so hard in your life right now. You cannot see it. You can't see it at all, because I didn't. I couldn't see it in the thick of it. Yeah. I couldn't see a thing, but he was totally working the entire time. And I wish I would have held on to that longer. And I think I would have been more at peace during that time if I would have continued to tell myself and believe God's working. I trust him. It's going to be good. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I did to an extent, but I think I probably could have leaned in more to God's working. Don't worry about it. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
That's so beautiful. There's such good points in there, Mandy, of when you transition from one thing to another. Most people are scared of the transition, scared to change. They don't want to change because then it's like, I got to learn all this new stuff, right? So
Mhm.
that obviously can be really scary. I remember when I went from being a news anchor and reporter to entrepreneurship, I was like, I had the wildest roller coaster for 5 years. I was like, what is going on? And if I would have focused on God's presence rather than trying to hustle and get to where society said I needed to be at that point in time, which was married, have kids, be successful, all this
Yes.
stuff. I
Yes.
was so trying to get in there so fast that I kept running into just bad relationship after bad relationship and heartbreak after heartbreak and just dead end after dead end and just being blinded. And then eventually, to be honest, I had this conversation with somebody recently. Money took over lordship of my life where it was like God no longer had that throne. Money took over because I just needed it so bad that I'm like, Lord, I'll do anything for money, whatever. Not anything, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's one of
Totally.
those where it wasn't until he really caught my heart being like, be in my presence and you won't be so focused on the money and all these worldly things. I'm going to provide. He's like, I have an inheritance for you. And if you
Right.
focus on me and surrender these things of your heart of like what's making you worried and all that stuff, because we're constantly getting hit every day. But he keeps reminding us, like, rest in me. There's rest in me and there's peace there. And just like how you mentioned before you started sharing your story about that identity piece, you're like, oh, I'm feeling the tingles, I'm feeling the Holy Spirit. I know I'm in the right spot. You can feel them and you can feel his presence because you have spent time in his presence. And most people, number one questions, right? How do I know if God's talking to me? How do I hear from God? How do I know if the Holy Spirit's there? Like, what is that? It's being in his presence and being able to surrender because we're trying to hold on to things so tight because
Mhm.
society's just constantly so loud, but God's not that loud, but his presence is big. It's quiet and it's right there when you're ready to have that time. So I
Yeah.
love that you brought that in there because that is a tough transition for anyone. We
Mhm.
really have to ask ourselves, like, where is our identity rooted and discover where those roots are. And if it's not in Christ, it's in something else. And that's why you're on shaky ground. That's
Yeah.
why you're not feeling the peace and you're like, what am I doing? And like you said, he had to prune you. He had to, crush you. He had to do all these. If you think of like how you make wine, the pruning, the crushing, the all of that, the aging, like it takes time in that waiting for you to become this amazing wine that, it's just like out of this world, something unique in a blend that only you can create.
Yeah.
And that most people want that. Hey, can you give that to me in 30 seconds through like a drive-through timestamp? Like hurry up. But God's like, no, because if I'm giving you the desires of your heart, if I'm giving you what I've already laid on your heart as far as your inheritance, like, and you're not ready for it, you're going to squander it. So I'm not
Yeah.
going to give this thing to you, especially what you want if
Mhm.
you're not ready. So trust me that I'm pruning you to where you need to be. And I just
Yeah.
think it's such a beautiful message for the women that are listening to this because there are so many women going through that and they're scared to take that leap. They're scared for what's next because it's like, it's scary. What do I do? But God's like, I'm right here. You can go talk to
Yeah.
your best friend. You can go talk to your small group. You can go talk to anybody. And that's great. Community is awesome. But he's like, I'm also right here 24/7, and you can
Yeah.
just spend that time with me. So I just want to say
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that because I just feel like in the meat of this entire message, women are going to be like, wow,
Mhm.
like where is my identity rooted? And then, from where you were to the middle where it got messy, right? To where you are now. Talk about what it's like now and what you do now so the women can kind of see that transition, fully play out, at least at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I quickly want to say to that point of like, I'm right here. If I think back on all the other times, especially that specific time in my life, God has always provided. Always. He has never not provided. It may not be in the ways that I thought were the best, but if you're wondering that being scared to take that leap, just look back at all the other times that he's provided and take comfort and confidence knowing he's provided all these other times. What makes you think this time is going to be any different? So
Come on.
I love that you said that too. So how things have now again gone from this very messy couple of years to where I'm at today. Um, as weird as it may sound, and I think this is actually true for a lot of people with the pandemic, I don't know that I would have started this business if the pandemic hadn't happened and it would have forced me into what I'm doing now. So kind of quick summary, we got engaged, I moved to Milwaukee, and I transitioned over to working for another cosmetic company, same kind of position, sales and education support for that cosmetic brand. And then March 2020, the world shut down. The world was like, what is happening? And I was an independent contractor, so I was one of the first to quote unquote lose their job. But I feel like that sentence really holds a lot of weight for people that have been in corporate America, been with something for a couple of years. So more so, I just say like, I didn't have an hour. I didn't have any hours. Like my job description or my job was no longer available. So, but to that point, I didn't have anything. And I was still all that time working on the beauty content creation and doing the makeup stuff, and not really doing YouTube as much anymore, but really starting to steer my focus onto Instagram, figuring that out. I've done a lot of research and reading and taking courses. I mean, free courses. I'd taken a lot of free resources up until that point, listening to podcasts, watching videos, whatever, like whatever it was, you name it, I was absorbing it to try and make something of content creation. So then when the pandemic happened and I no longer had my hours, my job anymore, I kind of sat around for a little bit. I had an Etsy shop at that point that was doing okay. That shut down because the printer shut down. So it's kind of just twiddling my thumbs for a little bit. And, after a month and a half of nothing happening, I decided, okay, I'm going to make a full on go of trying to make money and an income from social media. I invested right away. That's actually one of the things that I recommend always when you're trying to dive into something new and you're not really sure of which direction. Don't try and figure it out on your own. Go get help right away. Go ask people. Go invest in something, and whatever budget that is. Go invest in this dream and this business that you want to have. And I also want to say, in May, I didn't know what my business was. I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to make my own hours, and I want to make an income off of social media. I was seeing plenty of other people do it. So why not me? So May was really the turning point of this entire business. I have a calendar that I created with all kinds of different topics, beauty being one of them. This one I have to laugh at because I just got married in October 2019, right? It's May 2020. I've been married for a hot minute at this point, but bet your bottom dollar, I'm going to talk about newlywed life like I knew what I was talking about. So I was throwing stuff out there. And then I was also going to incorporate Instagram tips and little things like that. And by the end of the month, Instagram tips are the things and the content that people wanted to see more of. So then June, I adjusted and I was talking more about Instagram. Same thing. People were more interested in that than my beauty stuff, than my newlywed information. I don't think anybody got anything out of my newlywed information. I was just trying stuff, it's just trying stuff. July, I mean, so on and so forth. As I was going along, I first want to emphasize May was messy as all get out. I was just taking messy action. I was just throwing a whole bunch of stuff out there to see what works. And as the months went on, I was again like pruning and fine tuning and making it better the next time, and then the next time, and then the next time. And I started taking beta coaching clients, people that I would coach 30 minutes for free and kind of see where they're lacking in their Instagram strategy in September. I had a couple beta coaching clients then, and then September is when I booked my very first one-on-one coaching client. And then again, that just continued to snowball into more clients, They were seeing results. They were telling their friends. I was talking about it more. So it very much was a process. Reels came in the picture in August. I jumped on those right away because of all of my video content expertise that I had before that with YouTube. And I mean, that's years before Reels ever came out. So that was very much in my wheelhouse. That wasn't one of those things that was like, oh, innate ability, she just knows what to do. No, I had years of experience with video content creation before that. So Reels was just, like I said, in my wheelhouse. But that also had an exponential reach for me. So then my account blew up really fast. And then I was bringing on more people, and then they wanted to know about Reels. So I made a workshop for that, an intensive for that, which then brings me to finally, which is like my baby. I love it so much, is the Fierce Social Society membership, which is a membership for female entrepreneurs that want to use Instagram specifically to grow their business. There's a lot of things in there. And Molly, you just joined me for an amazing training that all the girls just absolutely loved about on-camera confidence, how to show up on your lives and your stories on video, because that is really where digital marketing is going. So it's been quite a journey. It's been very messy, but now we're getting to the point where it's not so messy and things are being fine-tuned. But I really like to emphasize the messy part because people are just desperate to get it right the first time. And I understand that because you don't want to waste time. But the only way that you're going to figure out if things work and they don't work is if you're willing to try and try again and try again. There is no success without failure. It's just a part of the process. So that's kind of how we got to where we are at today with the Fierce Social Society membership. And I absolutely love it because there's 180 women in there now. I opened it in January.
Wow.
It's March 11th. So I've seen their accounts, their business has already changed with just being part of it since January. So it's been a massive blessing. I'm super thankful that I had the opportunity to do something like this. So it's been a wild ride, but I love it. I wouldn't change anything about it.
I love it, Mandy. That's so good. And I love how you went into like short snippet details of like, hey, look, this is where it was at this point. This is where it went. This is how we changed, how we audited. Like you're just so open and transparent. And that's what women need, because there's a lot of women that we can bring on this podcast that are like, oh, super successful. I make blah, 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 da, da, da. But like, it's like bringing it into like, here's the reality of like, either you're in it right now or like giving them, I remember when this happened, like those pieces, right? It's so good because people get online and they get in that comparison trap and they're like, okay, I should be here, should be there. Comparison can either be really self-destructive, competition rather, can be really self-destructive. And then we jump into comparison, or it can be motivating, being like, I love what she's doing. I want to figure out what I need to do for you. And that's where, we always want with any women on the show, ladies, we just want it to be like an inspiration of like, you can do it too. Not being like, wow, gosh, look at Mandy. Like I opened up my membership like 2 years ago and she has 180 and I have 18 or whatever it is. Like, first of all, having a membership, I had somebody on the show the other day, having a membership is a lot of work. Our Girl Power Alliance membership, it is a lot of work, but it's so fruitful. And there's 3 of us. I can only imagine for you, there's like one of you. And so there's a lot of pieces, but at the end of the day, when you love what you do, you find a way to be able to serve in any capacity, whether it's a membership or one-on-one coaching or products in an Etsy store or cleaning service, whatever your jam is, whatever your hands are anointed to do, go do that. But just understand that you first got to believe that you can keep refining because there's so many roadblocks that could be set up out there that could just be like, oh no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. If you really want something, think about the most successful person, say we take Grant Cardone. He has just failed more times than all of us probably combined, and then he just kept getting up. People just keep getting up and they're like, no, I know this is inside me for a reason. I get to keep digging, whether it's me growing, me being connected to other people, or me listening to something, whatever it is, there's always something out there that is going to be for you. And you just get to find it and have that lens on it. So I just want to say, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on. This has been absolutely incredible. I would love for you to share any final words that you have. And then of course, the best place for people to get in touch with you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you wrapped it up really beautifully. If anything, I would want people to listen to this and any other episodes and whoever they're watching out there to first look at their circumstances, where they came from, how long they've been doing it, get really curious, but then also get inspired to know that if they've done it, you can too. It's not, they've done it, the place is taken, there's no more room. That's not it. Don't listen to that lie. That is false. That is a myth. Straight up lie. It is just showing you that it's possible because they've done it. So now you can too. And thank God for that. Thank God there's like multiple coaches out there. There's multiple podcasts. Can you imagine if there's just one podcast for everybody? That would just be so sad. Or just one coach that would just, oh man, that just makes my heart sad even thinking about it. Get inspired, get curious. Look at, I think you were actually saying it during the training, but look at who they surround themselves with. What is their morning routine like? What are they reading? Things like that, like really get curious instead of, well, I could never do what Molly does, or I could never do what Mandy does. Absolutely you can. If we have figured out a way, you can do the exact same thing. So perfect way to just kind of sum this up. I would love for you to come say hi over on Instagram. That is my jam over on the Mandy Emerson. Like Molly and I were saying, I do have the Fierce Social Society membership, which is open and taking new members. I would love for you to be a part of this community. That is also one of the most important things to me in this membership when I was building it, is providing you the framework for the strategies, but also providing the community of other women that are trying to do the exact same thing, which is something that I really admire about Girl Power Alliance as well. These are women that are after the same things. Surround yourself with those people. And again, thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Again, I'm just going to leave this conversation with a big old grin on my face. So this is such a pleasure and an honor. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yes, go follow her, you guys. You're going to love it. You're going to be addicted to what she does. She does everything in just excellence. And I say this on every time I talk to Mandy in any kind of training, in person, in the DMs, wherever, she just keeps it real. Like, this is Mandy, this is what it is. And that's that, like just real, raw and all. And I absolutely love that. She's not trying to be somebody she's not. She's like, this is what it is. Boo. And people love you for that. And so being able to go to her page and just being like, this is what I do. Like, if I love what somebody does, I start reverse engineering it. Man, she's just so raw and real. How did she get there? Man, she must be really comfortable in her own skin or really confident in this, or maybe she's plugging into these podcasts or these books or having these people around her. All of that matters. So if you love something about somebody else, sit there and be like, kind of work it backwards. Here's where they are now, but how did they get there? What does it look like, smell like, feel like, physically, spiritually, emotionally? That type of stuff. And so, Mandy, you just do such a great job at just being you. Honestly, I love saying that because it's so true. So thank you so much for coming on today. This has been such a treat for myself and our listeners.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it. All right, ladies, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.